Hi, everybody. I wanted to take a few minutes to share with you the upcoming class I'm doing with Nancy Rhines on near-death experience, but it's not on near-death experiences. More specifically, it's on the sacred guidance that has come through near-death experiences. And I tell you, I'm so touched by her story and by others that I have since been in touch with, because so much of what they are sharing as a result of their near death experiences validates so much of what the mystics have taught through the centuries. And I think that's the connecting line for me that I have found so awesome. Because, I mean, the mystics come from long traditions of deep faith. And so many of the people who have near death experiences come from backgrounds of agnosticism or atheism, nothing to do with matters of the sacred whatsoever. And yet they bring back remarkable teachings, remarkable insights that the mystics have written about, taught about, from Francis of Assisi to John of the Cross to Ignatius Loyola to Padre Pio to Rumi to Buddha, that they have taught for centuries. And I'm talking about, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, not just a baker's dozen, and not just people from, a Christian country, but I have met people who have had near-death experiences from all over the world. Well, from all the countries I've taught in, let me put it that way. And so I find this to be extraordinarily remarkable. And I think the wisdom they're bringing through now and the phenomenon of near-death experience, which seem to have a kind of archetypal pattern of its own, where someone finds themselves out of their body, not quite sure they're dead. Then they have to realize that maybe I'm dead. And then there's an encounter with a being, an angel, or a guide, and then a life review. And it's in the life review that most of these individuals, if not all that I've met, undergo such a profound transformation that they encounter in this life review the significance of every single second of their life, second, down to the microsecond. Every single word they ever used, every thought they ever had, every action, every single impact that they have had on the life of another person. And why this is so important to me, aside from the awesomeness of realizing that everything we do is somehow observed and it matters, is that it speaks to us about how much power is contained in everything we do and how powerful we are. And, in the mystical traditions, they oftentimes speak of this act of surrender, and surrender, my experience is that so often surrender is introduced to someone as this act of finally screaming, I give up, I surrender, I can't, go on anymore. And it's, and I see, I'm so crooked. Ugh. I hear this so often from people who have gone through addiction programs where they reached this place of surrender. But that's not how a mystic meant it. Not at all. What they meant by their surrender moment was that they had reached a realization of how powerful they really were, of how powerful their soul was, of how powerful that connection between their sacred self and the sacred universe was, and how strong the alliedship was in the invisible holy world for their life. That they'd realized that they saw how much power they had, and it was so much that they did not want to misuse it under any circumstances. So it was this act of, I surrender myself back to you. Whatever you want me to do, you tell me. I am your servant. I will do whatever you want. They finally got the proportions right, that you're the one who gave me life. You have a plan for me. Help me to follow that plan, and off we go. And what people often report when they come back from their near-death experience is that they saw that their life was, as I put it once upon a time, a sacred contract. They saw their contracts down, like Nancy talks about seeing that she had a contract to take care of her father, which in her conscious mind, she had no memory of whatsoever. But that's how it often is. We don't remember, we can't possibly recall everything that we agreed to. And yet we somehow participated in the co-creation of our life. That and I know that because we have a way of evaluating our lives by saying, well, I'm not happy, or I'm not comfortable, or this or that, we think that comfort and convenience and happiness and all of that is the standard by which we should measure whether or not we are on the right life path. But that's not the accurate standard whatsoever. And I want to talk about that during the class. Like, how does a near-death experience, how does exposure to the other side, to your contract, for example, which has completely validated what I've been teaching for 25 years now, that we do make agreements before we're born. And how does exposure to those moments of agreement, which is something I have not seen, I just sort of intuitively knew that this was the structure. But when you actually are told, you agreed to this, and I'll show you when, and I'll show you that this was all set up for you and for this other person, it puts everything in a different light. Now, I know from the questions that I'm always asked by people, how do I know life purpose? And how do I know my contracts? And how do I know this? And how do I know that? This class is something, is a way for me to address that by someone who actually was an atheist, or an agnostic, really, more of an agnostic, and then had several conversations, had this long conversation, I should say, with her guide, who she called her teacher, who truly enlightened her about the sacred structure of human life and divine life and what we're doing here. And so we're going to combine our areas of knowledge and hopefully answer a lot of the questions that I think so many people want to know. For me, it fills me with incredible hope and incredible comfort, more than you'll ever know. In this past couple of weeks, my beloved forever friend, Norm Sheely, passed away. Now, many of you know me through my work as a medical intuitive, so you know that he was my dear friend and colleague and partner in work and research for decades. 39 years. 39 years, yeah. And he passed away. And in losing him, I've lost a deep, deep part of myself. I have. But at the same time, I'm telling you, my deep faith, my knowing that we just go on, and that he simply shed a body that had become unusable, miserably uncomfortable, and that he was free. He could walk again. He could walk again. He could be free again. I know that we'll see each other again. And I have to tell you, it's not like I hope. I really deeply believe this. And from all the people that have had near-death experiences and have come back and said, look, I saw my mother, I saw my brother, I saw this, I saw that. These people aren't hallucinating. You know, they're not, this isn't wishful thinking. It would be, you know, if it were one or two, but it's thousands. It's thousands. It doesn't matter what background, it's thousands. And what they also have in common is they never come back and say, by the way, heaven says you should have this religion, this. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. There's this incredible loving cosmology, and where the message is, ask for our help. We're here to help you. Well, what does that mean? And that's what we're going to talk about. What does that mean? How do you get the allyship of the holy world? And what does that mean? But all I know is that the content of these experiences and blending them with the great teachings of the mystics, for me, is a formula for hope. It's a formula for hope. It's a formula for faith. It's a formula for actually trusting that everything you do is actually known and watched, that you are more significant than you can ever imagine, and certainly more powerful. And that if you measure your sense of power by your bank account or by your physical strength or any kind of exterior thing, by status, or you're missing the game. I mean, how many of these near-death experiences reported back where they were shown the actions they did that meant the most? And it wasn't, as one woman said, you would have thought they would have pointed to my degrees on the wall, because I always pointed to them and said, look at this, I've got this degree, and I accomplished this, and I did. They could care less. What they showed her were these times in which she made decisions to help people, to say a kind word, and how it changed the life of that person. And she never knew that, because it was just a spontaneous act of kindness, and that was of more meaning to the sacred world than anything you could put in a shopping cart, than anything you can put on the wall. That means to us, these things mean something to us. Those are the things we go through to build our self-esteem and make us feel safe here. But it's once we have a sense of self-esteem and safety, then we feel safe being kind to others, perhaps. Maybe that's what we need to feel good about ourselves, and then we can be kind to others, because empowering others is the most challenging thing in the world for human beings. They're terrified of that, because we're born knowing that power is that essence, light, love, and law. It's the nature of God. And that if I turn my light towards someone and I empower them, it has the potential of transforming and changing their life. I hold that thought when I teach, because I realize that. So it is with great anticipation that I approach this class, because the message of becoming one, of knowing your power, of trusting that, to me, could not be more important. So, class starts, wait a minute, David just told me this, and it slipped out of my little cabeza. It starts in August, and it is August 13th, Tuesday, and then the 15th, the 20th, and the 22nd. And I think it will be at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 Central, 10 Mountain, which is where I'll be teaching from for a couple of days. I'll start the class here and finish it there. And I am so looking forward to this, and I hope you'll join me. The write-up will be on our site shortly. And consider joining this class. I think it's just going to be a rich and beautiful spiritual experience. Thank you, everybody.